Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. My whole focus now, at an advanced age, is to see how whatever is favorable for this chanting. I have a vow, 16 rounds of japa to my spiritual master. And it's very difficult for me to do. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So I'm trying to see what is going to help the chanting. It's all about the chanting. It's all about the holy name anyway. So, this is the challenge ahead. Hare Krishna. So getting up early, that's helpful. Simplifying life, and just what you need, that helps. Hearing about Krishna, that helps. And association with devotees, that helps. But association with devotees doesn't just mean, hanging out together. It means a lot of times understanding what not to do. Since we're all more or less undergoing purification, then there's going to be some abrasive things that go on in association, and that's healthy, that's helpful. It takes the rough edges off of everyone. So association is very valuable like that. To see what, I need to work on, and to also understand that the other devotee or devotees is also in the process of purification. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, trying to get these rounds done, and mind is wandering here, there, everywhere. So, I'm thinking to read a little bit, hear something from Prabhupada, hear a little something, and get back on track. Here's something about Krishna. So I haven't read Krishna book in a while. Maybe read a little something from the 10th canto. It's a summary study of the Bhagavatam by Srila Prabhupada. And it's chapter 85, the kidnapping of Subhadrā, and Lord Krishna's visiting Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. Yeah, we read it's been a while since we've read from here. We're halfway through the chapter, and we had read about the kidnapping of Subhadrā. It was Arjuna disguised himself as a Brahmin. And Balaram was intent on marrying his sister, Subhadrā, to Duryodhana. Balaram had some affection for Duryodhana. He taught him how to fight with a club, and evidently Duryodhana was somewhat surrendered to Balaram. And Duryodhana really had nothing against Kṛṣṇa either. It's just that he was envious of devotees, the Pandavas, because of his greed for material position and power. The kingdom was inherited by the Pandavas because even though Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana's father, was the eldest son and was in line to inherit the kingdom, he was born without eyesight, and it disqualified him from taking the throne. So it was very complicated. Duryodhana felt that he should have had the kingdom. His father was next in line, and he was envious that the Pandavas were to, Yudhisthira was to rule. But he had some affection for Balaram, and Balaram also was reciprocating with Duryodhana, and he wanted to give his sister to Duryodhana. But Kṛṣṇa and the rest of the Yadus, no, not Duryodhana, no. But Balaram, sometimes Balaram's like that. He's got a different idea. But he always surrenders to Kṛṣṇa. And Arjuna kidnapped Subhadrā. And she was very happy with that, because she didn't want to marry Duryodhana either. Kṛṣṇa, Balaram. Hare Krishna. In Chaitanya Leela, he manifests as Nityananda, and he's the Avadut. So, Hare Krishna. He's an Avadut. He's not active within society or culture. He's outside the jurisdiction. So you can kind of see that tendency here in Balaram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So now Kṛṣṇa and all the great sages have accompanied him. Narada, Sita, Vyasa, there's hundreds of them, all the great sages and saints have accompanied him in an incredible journey across many, many kingdoms in India. Why? Because Kṛṣṇa wanted to visit two pure devotees that lived in the kingdom of Mithila, Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. Bahulāśva was the king, and Śrutadeva was a very humble, poor Brahmin. But they were pure devotees of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa wanted to visit them. This is the power of the pure devotee. Kṛṣṇa is drawn to the pure devotee. Kṛṣṇa is drawn there. He's attracted. Kṛṣṇa is all attractive, but Kṛṣṇa is attracted to pure devotion. So they made this huge journey all across India. This is 5,000 years ago. And it was quite a sight. Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I don't know if Balaram was with him or not, I can't remember. But certainly Kṛṣṇa and all the sages. And it was quite a sight. And every kingdom that they passed through, every town, every village, every city, the people all saw this incredible phenomenon. They saw Kṛṣṇa and all the sages passing by. And they all became liberated. So this is the power of the pure devotees, pure devotion. Because Kṛṣṇa was attracted to go visit two pure devotees on the other side of India and traveled all across India to get there. Everyone on the way got purified. So, let's see. He's visiting Bahulāśva. Now, Kṛṣṇa did something unusual here. Well, not for him. He visited both of them simultaneously, while each one thought that Kṛṣṇa was visiting him alone. Kṛṣṇa can do that. He expanded. But he went also along with the great sages and saints. to both of his devotees simultaneously. Now we understand Kṛṣṇa can do that. He can simultaneously be with each gopi in the rasa dance. He can simultaneously be in 16,108 palaces with his 16,108 queens and be completely independent manifestations. It's not like a TV where there's hundreds of TV screens and people are all watching the same thing. Not like that. It's each one was acting uniquely in each palace. In one palace, he's playing with his children. In another palace, he's eating dinner. In another palace, he's playing chess. In another palace, he's talking intimately with his wife. In another palace, he was out riding horses into the forest. All simultaneous. But what is interesting also is that all the sages and saints also expanded to accompany Kṛṣṇa. Now, Prabhupada doesn't explain how that happened, but he does mention the pastime here. He says, in Vrindavan, when Brahma stole away Krishna's cows, calves, and cowherd boys, Kṛṣṇa expanded himself into many new cows, calves, and cowherd boys. So Prabhupada seems to indicate that Kṛṣṇa himself expanded as the sages, saints, and gurus, and pandits, and whoever else was accompanying him. Kṛṣṇa himself, like when he expanded into the cows, calves, and cowherd boys, he expanded into the sages, saints, and the acharyas that were all there. Okay, so he's with King Bahulāśva. Bahulāśva has received him so nicely. Sumptuous food, washed his feet, given him the most comfortable place to sit, and he's there. Now he's offering prayers. He has the Lord's lotus feet in his lap. While massaging the feet with his hands, he began to speak about the glories of the Lord in a sweet voice. Now, who does that? Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi does that. She's massaging the feet of the Lord while he's reclining on the Seshanaga. So here King Bahulāśva is doing the same thing. And he begins to speak, Bahulāśva. My dear Lord, you are the super soul of all living entities, as witness within the heart and cognizant of everyone's activities. As such, being duty-bound, we always think of your lotus feet so that we can remain in a secure position without deviating from your eternal service. As a result of our continuous remembrance of your lotus feet, you have kindly visited my place personally to favor me with your causeless mercy. We have heard, my dear Lord, that by your various statements you confirm your pure devotees to be more dear to you than Lord Balaram, or your constant servitor, the goddess of fortune. Your devotees are dearer to you than your first son, Lord Brahma. And I am sure that you have so kindly visited my place in order to prove your divine statement. I cannot imagine how people can be godless and demoniac even after knowing of your causeless mercy and affection for your devotees, who are constantly engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. How can they forget your lotus feet? My dear Lord, it is known to us that you are so kind and liberal that when a person leaves everything just to engage in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, you sometimes give yourself in exchange for that unalloyed service. You have appeared in the Yadu dynasty to fulfill your mission of reclaiming all conditioned souls, rotting in the sinful activities of material existence. And this appearance is already famous all over the world. My dear Lord, You are the ocean of unlimited mercy, love, and affection. Your transcendental form is full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. You can attract everyone's heart by your beautiful form as Shama Sundar, Kṛṣṇa. Your knowledge is unlimited, and to teach all people how to execute devotional service, you have sent your incarnation, Narayan, who is engaged in severe austerities and penances at Bahulāśva ashram. Kindly, therefore, accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. My dear Lord, I beg to request you and your companions, the great sages and Brahmins, to remain at my place, so that this family of the famous King Nimi may be sanctified by the dust of your lotus feet, at least for a few days. Lord Kṛṣṇa could not refuse the request of his devotee, and thus he remained there for a few days, along with the sages, in order to sanctify the city of Mithila and all its citizens. Kṛṣṇa, this is the pure devotee. Everyone benefits by the devotion of the pure devotee. Meanwhile, the Brahmin, simultaneously receiving Lord Kṛṣṇa and his associates at home, became transcendentally overwhelmed with joy. After offering his guests nice sitting places, the Brahmin began to dance, throwing his wrap around his body. Śrutadeva, being not at all rich, offered only mattresses, wooden planks, straw carpets, etc. to his distinguished guests. Lord Kṛṣṇa and the sages, but he welcomed them to his best capacity. He began to speak very highly of the Lord and the sages, and he and his wife washed the feet of each one of them. After this, he took the water and sprinkled it over all the members of his family, and although it appeared that the Brahmin was very poor, he was at that time most fortunate. While Śrutadeva was welcoming Lord Kṛṣṇa and his associates, he simply forgot himself in transcendental joy. After welcoming the Lord and his companions according to his capacity, he brought fruits, incense, scented water, scented clay, tulasi leaves, kusha straw, and lotus flowers. They were not very costly items and could be secured very easily, but because they were offered with devotional love, Lord Kṛṣṇa and his associates accepted them very gladly. The Brahmin's wife cooked very simple foods like rice and dal, and Lord Kṛṣṇa and his followers were very pleased to accept them because they were offered in devotional love. When Lord Kṛṣṇa and his associates were fed in this way, the Brahmin Śrutadeva was thinking thus: I am fallen into the deep, dark well of householder life and am the most unfortunate person. How has it become possible that Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his associates, the great sages, whose very presence makes a place as sanctified as a pilgrimage site, have agreed to come to my place? While the Brahmin was thus thinking in this way, the guests finished their lunch and sat back very comfortably. At that time, the Brahmin, Śrutadeva, and his wife, children, and other relatives appeared there to render service to the distinguished guests. While touching the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Brahmin began to speak. My dear Lord, he said, you are the Supreme Person, Purushottama, situated transcendentally to the manifested and unmanifested material creation. The activities of this material world and of the conditioned souls have nothing to do with your position. We can appreciate that it is not that only today you have given me your audience. You are associating with all the living entities as Paramatma since the beginning of creation. The statement of the Brahmin is very instructive. It is a fact that the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, in his Paramatma feature, entered the creation of this material world as Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Śrutadeva Vishnu, and in a very friendly attitude the Lord is sitting along with the conditioned soul in the body. Therefore, every living entity has the Lord with him from the very beginning, but due to his mistaken consciousness of life, the living entity cannot understand this. When his consciousness is, however, changed into Kṛṣṇa consciousness, he can immediately understand how Kṛṣṇa is trying to assist the conditioned souls to get out of the material entanglement. Śrutadeva continued. Śrutadeva is going to offer a lot of prayers here. Hey Kṛṣṇa. My dear Lord, he's touching the Lord's lotus feet. My dear Lord, you have entered this material world as if in a sleeping condition. A conditioned soul, while sleeping, creates false or temporary worlds. He becomes busy in many illusory activities, sometimes becoming a king, sometimes being murdered, sometimes going to an unknown city, and all these are simply temporary affairs. Similarly, your Lordship apparently also, in a sleeping condition, enters this material world to create a temporary manifestation, not for your personal necessities, but for the conditioned soul who wants to imitate your Lordship as enjoyer. The conditioned soul's enjoyment in the material world is temporary and illusory, and yet the conditioned soul is by himself unable to create a temporary situation for his illusory enjoyment. In order to fulfill his desires, although they are temporary and illusory, you enter into this temporary manifestation to help him. Thus, from the beginning of the conditioned soul's entering into the material world, you are his constant companion. When, therefore, the conditioned soul comes in contact with a pure devotee and takes to devotional service, beginning from the process of hearing your transcendental pastimes, glorifying your transcendental activities, worshiping your eternal form in the temple, offering prayers to you, and engaging in discussion to understand your transcendental position, he then gradually becomes freed from the contamination of material existence. His heart becomes cleansed from all material dust, and thus gradually you become visible in the heart of the devotee. Although you are constantly with the conditioned soul, only when he becomes purified by devotional service do you become revealed to him. Others who are bewildered by fruitive activities, either by Vedic injunction or customary dealings, and who do not take to devotional service, become captivated by the external happiness of the bodily concept of life. You are not revealed to such persons. Rather, you remain far, far away from them. But for one who, being engaged in your devotional service, has purified his heart by constant chanting of your holy name, you become very easily understood as his eternal, constant companion. It is said that your Lordship, sitting in the heart of a devotee, gives him direction by which he can very quickly come back to home, back to Godhead, back to you. This direct dictation by you reveals your existence within the heart of the devotee. Only a devotee can immediately appreciate your existence within his heart, whereas for a person who has only a bodily concept of life, is engaged in sense gratification, you always remain covered by the curtain of Yogamaya. Such a person cannot realize that you are very near, sitting within his heart. For a non-devotee, you are appreciated only as ultimate death. The difference is like the difference between a cat carrying a kitten in its mouth and a cat carrying a rat in its mouth. In the mouth of the cat, the rat feels its death, whereas the kittens in the mouth of the cat feel motherly affection. Similarly, you are present to everyone, but the non-devotee feels you are ultimate cruel death. Whereas for a devotee, you are the supreme instructor and philosopher. The atheist therefore understands the presence of God as death, but the devotee understands the presence of God within his heart, takes dictation from you, and lives transcendentally, not being affected by the contamination of the material world. You are the supreme controller. So Śrutadeva is in ecstasy here. He's touching the lotus feet of the Lord, who has come to his house with all the great sages and saints, and he's touching the Lord's feet. And he's in ecstasy, and he's speaking. You are the supreme controller and superintendent of the material nature's activities. See, this glorifying of Kṛṣṇa is actually, it's devotional service, and it's an expression of love for Kṛṣṇa and appreciation for Kṛṣṇa. So he has a loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's manifesting by his speaking these beautiful prayers to Kṛṣṇa. They're like words of love. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He's holding his feet and he's speaking these loving words for Kṛṣṇa, appreciating Kṛṣṇa. He's touching his feet, speaking. So, Śrutadeva continues, you are the supreme controller and superintendent of the material nature's activities. The atheist class of men simply observe the activities of material nature, but cannot find you as the original background. A devotee, however, can immediately see your hand in every movement of material nature. The curtain of Yogamaya cannot cover the eyes of the devotee of your lordship, but it can cover the eyes of the non-devotee. The non-devotee is unable to see you eye to eye, just as a person whose eyes are interrupted by the covering of a cloud cannot see the sun. Although persons who are flying above the cloud can see the sunshine brilliantly as it is. Yeah, there was some discussion last night in the group that meets about the scientists and why can't they see that there is something beyond the material nature, that they're so absorbed in studying these laws of material nature and how things work and what they're made of, and they can't seem to get to the point of acknowledging that it's coming from somewhere and someone. They don't want to even look there. And what I was getting out of it is it's because they don't want to know. Being a servant, if that was the case, then they would be subordinate. Like they wouldn't be super powerful, my brain scientist, so great. I don't have to give credit to anyone, it's me. They wouldn't be able to do that if they understood where everything was coming from. So they don't want to go there. And also there's an exploitive tendency. They want to control material nature. They want to exploit material nature. So that excludes them because they don't have a devotional propensity to serve in love and devotion. Because they don't have that. They're more exploitive and controlling, then they're blocked. They can't see beyond. The curtain of the Yoga Maya cannot cover the eyes of a devotee of your lordship, but it can cover the eyes of the non-devotee. The non-devotee is unable to see you eye to eye, just as a person whose eyes are interrupted by the covering of a cloud cannot see the sun. Although persons who are flying above the cloud can see the sunshine brilliantly, as it is. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My dear self-effulgent Lord, I am your eternal servitor. Therefore, kindly order me. What can I do for you? Kindly order me. What can I do for you? I am your eternal servitor. The conditioned soul feels the pang of material contamination as threefold miseries, as long as you are not visible to him. As soon as you are visible by the development of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, all miseries of material existence simultaneously become vanquished. And then Prabhupada gives a little purport here. He speaks. Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Kṛṣṇa is naturally very much affectionately inclined to his devotees. When he heard Śrutadeva's prayers of pure devotion, he was very much pleased and immediately caught his hands and began to address him thus. So now Śrutadeva's been holding his feet. Now Kṛṣṇa takes his hands. He says, my dear Śrutadeva, all these great sages and saintly persons have been very kind to you by personally coming here to see you. You should consider this opportunity to be a great fortune for you. They are so kind, they are traveling with me, and wherever they go, they immediately make the whole atmosphere as pure as transcendence simply by the touch of the dust of their feet. People are accustomed to go to temples of God. They also visit holy places of pilgrimage, and after prolonged association with such activities for many days, by touch and by worship, gradually they become purified. But the influence of great sages and saintly persons is so great that by seeing them one immediately becomes completely purified. Kṛṣṇa continues, moreover, the very purifying potency of pilgrimage or worship of different demigods is also achieved by the grace of saintly persons. A pilgrimage site becomes a holy place because of the presence of the saintly persons there. My dear Śrutadeva, when a person is born as a Brahmin, he immediately becomes the best of all human beings. And if such a Brahmin, remaining self-satisfied, practices austerities, studies the Vedas, and engages in my devotional service, as is the duty of the Brahmin, or, in other words, if a Brahmin becomes a Vaishnava, how wonderful is his greatness! My feature of four-handed Narayan is not so pleasing or dear to me as a Brahmin Vaishnava. My feature of four-handed Narayan is not so pleasing or dear to me as is a Brahmin Vaishnava. Brahmin means one well conversant with Vedic knowledge. A Brahmin is the insignia of perfect knowledge, and I am the full-fledged manifestation of all gods. The less intelligent class of men do not understand me as the highest knowledge, nor do they understand the influence of the Brahmin Vaishnava. They are influenced by the three modes of material nature, and thus dare to criticize me and my pure devotees. A Brahmin Vaishnava, or a devotee already on the Brahminical platform, can realize me within his heart, and therefore he definitely concludes that the whole cosmic manifestation and its different features are effects of different energies of the Lord. Thus, he has a clear conception of the whole material nature and the total material energy, and in every action such a devotee sees me only nothing else. My dear Śrutadeva, you may therefore accept all these great saintly persons, Brahmins and sages, as my bona fide representatives. By worshipping them faithfully, you will be worshipping me more diligently. I consider worship of my devotees to be better than direct worship of me. If someone attempts to worship me directly without worshiping my devotees, I do not accept such worship, even though it may be presented with great opulence. So Śrutadeva asked the question, what can I do for you? And Kṛṣṇa is explaining, worship these great saints and sages. They're my bona fide representatives. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Boy, it's hard to stop, once you get going. It's so transcendental. In this way, Prabhupada continues now, in this way both the Brahmin, Śrutadeva, and the king of Mithila, under the direction of the Lord, worshipped both Kṛṣṇa and his followers, the great sages and saintly Brahmins, on an equal level of spiritual importance. Both Brahmin and king ultimately achieved the supreme goal of being transferred to the spiritual world. The devotee does not know anyone except Kṛṣṇa, and Kṛṣṇa is most affectionate to his devotee. Lord Kṛṣṇa remained in Mithila, both at the house of the Brahmin Śrutadeva and at the palace of King Bahulāśva. After favoring them lavishly by his transcendental instructions, he went back to his capital city, Dwarka. So he came there to liberate them and give them pure devotion, back home, back to Godhead. And in the process, so many others received liberation. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Prabhupada continues here, the instruction we receive from this incident is that King Bahulāśva and Śrutadeva the Brahmin were accepted by the Lord on the same level because both were pure devotees. This is the real qualification for being recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it has become the fashion of this age to become falsely proud of having taken birth in the family of a Kshatriya or of a Brahmin, we see persons without any qualification other than birth claiming to be a Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishya. But, as it is stated in the scriptures, Kalo Sudra Sambhava, in this age of Kali, everyone is a Sudra. Thus, this is because there is no performance of purificatory process known as samskara, which begin from the time of the mother's pregnancy and continue up to the point of the individual's death. No one can be classified as a member of a particular caste, especially a higher caste, a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, Vaishya, simply by birthright. If one is not purified by the process of the seed-giving ceremony, or Garbhadan Samskara, he is immediately classified amongst Sudras, because only the Sudras do not undergo this purificatory process. Sex life without purificatory process of Krishna consciousness is merely the seed-giving process of a Sudra, or the animals. But Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection by which everyone can come to the platform of a Vaishnava. This includes having all the qualifications of a Brahmin. The Vaishnavas are trained to become freed from the 4 kinds of sinful activities: illicit sex, indulgence in intoxicants, gambling, and eating animal foodstuffs. No one can be on the Brahminical platform without having these preliminary qualifications, and without becoming a qualified Brahmin, one cannot become a pure devotee. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 85th chapter of Kṛṣṇa, the kidnapping of Subhadrā, and Lord Krishna's visiting Śrutadeva and Subhadrā visiting Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. We may not like to hear this. It seems like a lot of restriction. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Those of us in Kali Yuga were accustomed to just kind of do whatever it is we want to do. Life after life after life. After life after life. Well, by following these nice instructions, all of that can stop. The life after life business, that can stop. And it was an interesting little bit of discussion in another thing that was discussed in the group last night, that sometimes people think, well, what's harm? What's the harm with becoming a dog or a cat or something? I mean, they're fine, right? They don't have to follow any rules or regulations. Everything's just according to nature. And they're not punished. They don't have, sinful karma reactions for their activities. So it seems pretty good not to have to deal with karma and just go naturally through nature. Well, that sounds good, right? But it's not that they don't suffer. They do. They suffer. It's cold, another animal comes and bites them. It's hard to find food. They get sick. They have allergies. They have intestinal worms, parasites, and ticks. So it may not be like karmic reactions like humans get, because humans, human life, we're given choice to follow the natural order of things as arranged by Kṛṣṇa, or not to, and to try to exploit. So it was interesting. One of the devotees said, yeah, you won't see a tiger stealing an orange, I mean, they act naturally according to nature, but human beings, they can engage in stealing, they can engage in, unnecessarily, maliciously harming others just because. So there's reactions for that, and that's where Yamaraj comes in to see what kind of punishment is there. But the animals don't go through that process. Punishment. What for? They're animals. They're acting according to nature. They eat when they're hungry. They poop when they have to poop. They defend themselves. They're not malicious. Except for maybe some creatures like snakes and scorpions. They'll attack for no reason. Just because you moved, they'll strike. So that's something else. But mostly the creatures, they're not into attacking others. If you don't bother them, or they don't feel afraid of you for some reason, they're just going about their business. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So that's not so great. It's not as good as it sounds. Well, I'll just become an animal, and then I won't have any karma. Yeah, but you still have all kinds of suffering. All kinds of suffering. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. All kinds of stress and fear and all kinds of stuff. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So all of that can stop by taking up this Krishna consciousness, cultivating devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna. All of that can stop. It's not so much the what that we offer to Krishna, but it's the how. That's that verse in Gita. One offers me with love and devotion a fruit, flower, leaf, or water, I'll accept. It's not the leaf, the flower, the fruit, or water. Yeah, give me that one. It's not the cauliflower, per se. But if it's prepared nicely out of love, that's fine. It should be done as nicely as possible according to one's means. But it's the love, the devotion in the offering. And then Krishna gets an appetite. And he wants to taste what you're offering. Hare Krishna. Yeah. The offering is saturated with love and devotion. Makes a tasty meal. Otherwise, just if there's any other reason for offering, it's not so attractive. It's a business deal. I give this to you because I want something. Yeah, it's no fun. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So we may not be on that platform of being able to offer in love and devotion directly to Krishna. And Prabhupada was saying in comment to what we're just reading that we go through the devotees. So for the disciples and the followers of Bhaktivedanta Swami, we actually offer to Prabhupada first. And because Prabhupada has this pure devotion to Krishna, then he makes sure to bring Krishna's attention, just see they're making this offering. They may not have this pure love and devotion just yet, but they're practicing, and please accept, on their offering. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All right, let me see if I can continue chanting my japa, make some more progress.